Yeah, I know how a Requiem for a Dream ends, and I didn't think that I would have to experience that again, but here we are. Here are my immediate thoughts on Season 1, Episode 4 of The Penguin. Hey everyone, this is Lenny. So we're just gonna get right into it and talk about episode 4 of season 1 of The Penguin. This episode was titled Shantani, and this was a Sofia-centric episode. Sofia, the Hangman, or I guess really what we really find out about her, and Christin Milioti's character. And just before I get into everything, once again, this is a spoiler review and recap. So unless you have seen episode 4 of season 1 of The Penguin, I suggest you go back, watch the episode, and come back here. But yeah, there's a lot of shit we're going to talk about. So this episode gets off the bat right away and just kicks off from where we left off last week, where we had Oz and Sofia basically dead to rights with Nadia from the Maroney family. And Nadia is like, so ever since you came to Blackgate, Oz, we knew that you were a rat. And Sophia's looking over at Oz and she's like, what is going on? And Oz is like, just shut your goddamn mouth. And Oz just basically lets it all out. It's like, hey, Nadia, the drugs are yours. I was trying to get close to Sofia, blah, 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 blah. And you could see the life and the soul draining out of her face, because the scene just prior from last week was Oz saying, hey, let me show you how much you can trust me. And then Oz turns right around and does this betrayal. And then on top of that, Nadia basically confesses to Sofia that, yeah, Oz killed your brother. Oh, you didn't know. But then we get Vic popping up and saving Oz, and then we get from Sofia's point of view, Oz just looking right in her eyes, and you can see it. Get out of here. The betrayal is complete, and you know what? It's so crazy. These first 3 episodes set things up in a way where you would root for Oz. Just like, oh man, he's been bullied and mistreated and is this underling thug, whatever. But this episode turns things around where it's like, no, Oz is a piece of shit, and Sofia is truly the victim here. So when Vic saves Oz, Nadia is able to get away, and Sofia is basically left in the back to fend for herself. She calls Julian Sand, and she basically passes out in the alley. And this brings us to our flashback, and we get to see Sofia as basically an innocent person. I mean, she's in a mob family, but she isn't involved in anything that has to do with the Falcone crime family. So when we are reintroduced to Sofia, she is sort of the chairwoman of the Falcone Foundation. This is a charitable foundation that is supposed to help women in need. She shares a story about when she was a young girl, she found her mother, she took her own life, and she, seems to have her head on straight. She has a very playful, innocent relationship with Oz, who was her driver at the time in this flashback. And things seem to be pretty good for her. She meets up, though, with Summer Gleason. Summer Gleason is a reporter, and once she said her name, I was like, wait, from Gotham Tonight? From Batman the Animated Series? So I already knew who she was. But, Summer approaches Sofia and is like, hey, do you know about this woman? Have you heard of this woman? They worked at the 44 Below, the club where, your father does all of his business. She was strangled, and Sofia's like, she just doesn't want to have any part of it because she was told very explicitly from her father, never talk to the press. And so she, fucks off with Oz. Now we see in the very rare flashback within a flashback, we see young Sofia finding her mother hanging in her bedroom. And yeah, obviously that is a traumatic thing to happen to any child. Here we are reintroduced to Carmine Falcone, who is played here by Mark Strong. In The Batman, he was played by John Turturro. I think there were just some scheduling conflicts, but Mark Strong does a great job of playing Carmine in the exact same menacing way that John Turturro did. Now, when Carmine is reintroduced here, he's with Alberto and Sofia, and Alberto is still a fuck up. He's a drunk, he's still a drophead and everything like that, and Carmine just doesn't want to have any part of him. He's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this kid, and Sofia's like, hey, I'll make sure that he behaves, and eventually Carmine's like, I want to change things up with this family, so when it's my time to go, I want you to be the head of the family. Yeah, we're getting to like House of the Dragon when it comes to like legacy and lineage and kind of breaking with tradition. But it seemed like Carmine wanted to pass off the family business to Sofia. Now, while this is happening, Sofia, she is feeling a little bit uneasy with her original meeting with Summer, and she talks to her dad about, finding mom and her feelings about that. And Carmine, because he's a gaslighting son of a bitch, is like, why would you want to open old wounds? I don't like when that happens. And Sofia's like, well, I mean, I'm sorry, but it's like, is she never allowed to talk about her mother ever again? The next scene, again, is really interesting because Alberto insults Oz, calls him the Penguin when Oz drops him off at the 44 Below Club. And Sofia's like, don't do that. And she defends him. And you could see that at the beginning, the relationship between Sofia and Oz was genuine. And it did seem like Oz did look out for her, and it did seem like that Sofia did have a genuine relationship with him, except for a couple incidents that happened later. So Sofia is still feeling a little uneasy, and she does meet up with Summer Gleason again, and she's looking at police pictures of all of these murdered women, and she talks about how, they say that they're all been hung. That's what the police reports say, that they were suicides. But you can see from these photos that there were struggles. Of course, Sofia goes back into her own past, and everything with her mother is recontextualized as she sees scratches under her mother's nails, and her father finding Sofia in the bedroom, and she notices that he has marks all over him. She takes his sunglasses off, which looked like he had scratches under his eyes and everything too. But this awakens something inside Sofia, and she basically threatens Summer and is like, listen, my dad would not do that. He's not a murderer. If you try to run this story, my family will destroy you. Now, Oz is listening to all of this, and he's like, listen, you probably shouldn't have even spoken with this person in the first place. And at the same time, knowing what we know about Oz and seeing the wheels turning in his head, we know that the betrayal is coming. Now, like I said, for the most part, Sofia and Oz did have a very friendly relationship. But there are two particular moments where it became very clear that no, there is a very clear power divide between Sofia and Oz. The first, when after Sofia meets with Summer that second time, and she's like, she doesn't want to have anything to do with her, and Oz is like, hey, you probably shouldn't have met with her in the first place. Sofia just goes off and is like, listen, no one cares what you think. You're just my driver, so just shut the fuck up, basically. The next time is the next scene where Carmine's having his birthday party, and Oz is in the house, and she says to Oz, what are you doing inside? Like, he's a dog or something. And it's like, okay, you can kind of see where Oz is kind of feeling where he's kind of on the bottom of the totem pole, and he needs to do something to get himself, a little bit more credibility within this family. But Carmine summons Sofia, Oz gets her, and Carmine's like, why'd you go to the press? And Sofia's like, did Oz tell you? I told that person to fuck off. And then everything just begins to fall to the wayside. And Carmine just starts to gaslight Sofia. Hey, seems like you're not feeling well. What's wrong with you? Maybe you should go home now. And it's like, what is going on? So Oz takes Sofia home, and then Kenzie, who was the corrupt cop from the Batman in 2022, pulls them over, and instantly she's arrested for not only the murders of all the girls at the 44 Below, but for Summer Gleason as well. Now, Oz clearly didn't know what's going on, and he did admit that in the other episode that, sure, he ratted on her, but he didn't think that what was going to happen to Sofia in terms of her being taken to Arkham was going to happen. And this was just a nightmare. So Sofia and Alberto meets up with Sofia's lawyer, and Carmine has it all set up where she has to spend 6 months at Arkham before her trial. Carmine got all of the family to write letters saying that she's insane, that she's had a traumatic experience ever since her mother passed away. She murders animals, and that, she's shown tendencies of being homicidal. Alberto clearly doesn't know about any of this, and she is taken away immediately. And Alberto's like, you are a Falcone, you will survive. And Sofia's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. And the next scene is totally demeaning and is meant to completely dehumanize her. They strip her down, they, shower her in cold water, and they do like a whole gynecological exam on her. The whole thing is just horrible. And then that's when we meet Dr. Ventress, who's just a horrible psychological doctor, and Julian Sand, who is his assistant. And Ventress is basically doing everything in his power to basically gaslight Sofia into somehow admitting that she is the one who committed all of these murders, or that she is a violent individual, or that something is wrong with her psychosis in the first place. Right from the first night, Sofia is completely intimidated. She doesn't know if she's even going to be able to survive the night. She is taken to her room by Dr. Sand. She meets Magpie, who at first I was like, is this going to be like a Harley Quinn type of cameo? But no, this is a completely different character. And Magpie's like, hey, you're the Hangman, aren't you? And I can't even imagine what it would have been like for Sofia to hear this crazy person's voice from the other side of the room, them saying, hey, you're the Hangman, aren't you? And she didn't do anything. But yeah, this episode has experienced an entire total shift, where we see Sofia as someone who has experienced wealth and privilege to someone who is completely isolated and is just stressed out all the time. And Arkham sets up these wild things for Sofia when she has her first meal and she's sitting with Magpie. There's this one lady who is unchained and she attacks Sofia. And yeah, after Sofia gets her ass handed to him, she is in a therapy session with Dr. Sand, and Dr. Sand is like, well, we're going to try to find out what's happening. And Sophia's like, that was not right. And he's like, so do you think that was set up against you? And Sophia's like, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to make me look paranoid. You're all trying to gaslight me. And the really brilliant thing about this show is, the first 3 episodes, we were introduced to Sofia in a way where we thought that she was crazy. And this entire episode, we contextualizes all of that. And it's sort of shamed the audience into thinking that Sofia is crazy, where she has been put in a situation that is completely out of her control and made to believe something that is completely not true of her. And we were made to believe that. So this show, going back and re-examining her life from her point of view, has done such a great job of making us say, we thought that she was a certain way, that Oz was a certain way, but now we're realizing this entire world of Gotham is completely upended. So the next scene is Sofia being unchained by the guards at Arkham with that same lady who beat her up, and she is chained up, and they give Sofia a fork with the expectations that she is going to kill this person. And Dr. Ventress is there to observe all of this. And Sofia's like, I'm not going to kill this woman, but she bumps into this lady far enough. She headbutts her, she takes the fork. But we realize that this lady as well has been mistreated by Arkham. And she's like, end it, end it, end it. And we realize she's talking about herself, and she takes the fork to herself, and that poor lady is gone. But then Arkham and Dr. Ventress has it set up where it looks like Sofia killed this girl, and now we get into a Requiem for a Dream where it's just like Ellen Burstyn going through shock therapy. And Christin Milioti is so good. You feel her fear, you feel her trepidation, you feel everything that she's going through as this poor woman who has been placed under this horrible situation and is placed absolutely alone with no one to help her. And we experience this absolute horrid montage where we see Sofia getting all of these shock treatments up until we see Julian Sand starting to be like, I don't know if this is right. He goes to Dr. Ventress at one point. He's like, hey, what if she's innocent? And Ventress is like, hey, slow your roll, dude. And while all this is happening, you can see that Sofia is starting to really unravel. When she's in her cage, in her room, she's starting to peel the wallpaper off to the point that when it's all done, it turns back into like her past. And she's back looking at her mom hanging herself. But it turned into a nightmare where she's seeing herself hung. And again, it's a moment where something is recontextualized, where we have all those scratches on her neck. I thought it was from her collar that she had when she was at Arkham, but really it's from the nightmares that she's had from seeing herself being hung. And then the tragedy is complete when Sofia is able to get a visit from Alberto, and he just lets her know, look, Ventress signed off on something that the judge agreed to. You are not fit to stand trial. We don't know what to do. Tell me what to do. Alberto, he was a fuck up, but in terms of his sister, he was a good guy. He was doing everything he could to help his sister out, but he had his hands tied as well. And you could see that at this point, Sofia has completely given up because it seems like no one's going to be able to help her. She just leaves. Alberto is screaming through the glass, what do I do? What do I do? Sophia's like, fuck it, whatever. And then the next scene is Sofia and Magpie, having lunch or whatever in the cafeteria with the rest of the Arkham inmates. And she's like, hey, you can get bliss now. Then that's the drug, and she's like, you don't have to lie anymore. And Sofia's like, have you been spying on me? Are you part of this as well? And Sofia murders Magpie, just smashes her head against the metal table. And it's insane because you can see the look on her face where it's like she's lost it, but at the same time, she's lost herself. And she's like, I'm fucking innocent. I told you this. And then, the transformation is complete at that point. And then we get back into present day. She's with Dr. Sand. She's taking a shower. And she's like, so you are here to help me, right? That's what you want. Or what do you want, Dr. Sand? What was it like to see someone unravel for 10 years and not do anything about it? And Dr. Sand is like, I feel bad. I have guilt over all of this and everything. She's like, yeah, really? Okay, well, let's see. But this scene is great, and Christin Milioti gives she has, I think, like 2 or 3 really great monologues in this episode, and she gives one here where she talks about she is completely sane, and she isn't broken, and she's going to prove it. And then the next scene, she's with the Falcone family, and Luca is there, he's trying to rally the troops and everything. And then Sofia comes out in this blazing dress. I mean, Christin Milioti can get it. Let's just say that. But she pulls her seat out in such an annoying fashion. She's just really commanding the scene here. And she gives another monologue, and she talks about how no one helped her and how everyone wrote all these horrible letters about her psychosis and how it was horrible the way that she was treated in Arkham. She was just stuck there with no help. But you know what? It is time for her to move on. She realizes that she doesn't fit with this family. So, Shintani. She takes her cousin's daughter to the greenhouse. They have a sleepover in there. Seems like something is a little off while all this is going on. She's having a cigarette. She has a window open before she brought the child to the greenhouse. And then she goes back inside. She leaves the kid in the greenhouse. She's like, hey, go back to sleep. And then you see what happens. She has a gas mask on. And she basically lit that place up with carbon monoxide and killed everyone with carbon monoxide poisoning, with the exception of Johnny Vitti, who she, wakes up with a gun and is like, hey, we got some stuff to talk about. So the episode ends with Sofia basically taking over the family. This was another great fucking episode. And again, Christin Milioti is amazing. And again, I just love the fact that this episode recontextualized everything that we thought we knew about Sofia Falcone and did this whole really cool bait and switch. For me, as I know her in comic canon as the Hangman, but then really played with those expectations and turned everything on its head. But this was just another great episode. This is actually maybe my favorite episode out of all of them. This is a prestige episode. I love this. We're probably, I think, halfway through this first season. There hasn't been one weak episode of the bunch yet. But yeah, this was just another great episode. I cannot wait until next week. I cannot wait to see what Oz has in store, what Sofia has planned, what the Maronis are going to do. There's just so much going on with this show. And yeah, HBO Max just has another big hit on their hands. But yeah, those are my media thoughts and feelings on episode 4 of season 1 of The Penguin. What did you guys think of the episode? Share your thoughts, leave your comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you can get notifications as well. Thanks a lot, everyone. Take care.